If you think about mid-range smartphones, what comes to mind? But this right here, the Nothing Phone 2A, is different. I mean, if I line them up all, you can see how it clearly stands out next to all the other kinds of phones in this segment. But that also doesn't mean that it's a perfect phone. It's got its own flaws and we'll discuss them one by one. Let's go. First, and I won't stretch this too much, okay? But this is a good looking phone. I mean, it looks like a nothing phone, no doubt. And there's absolutely no smartphone in this price segment anywhere in the world that looks like it. In fact, if you just look at it, you wouldn't even think it's plastic. Don't get me wrong, it is a plastic frame with a plastic back. However, you've got this really nice texture sitting behind the transparent plastic that almost makes you think that it's glass. Secondly, the dark grey matte finish almost gives the frame a metallic look, even if it's plastic. But two things really bother me. First, it's always dirty. I mean, if you've got a certain level of itch in you like I do, you'd keep cleaning it all day.
So the cell phone wipes itself clean.
And keeping that in mind, I think the white Nothing Phone 2A might actually be a wiser choice. Second, the beauty of this phone lies in the back, and over time, this might gather some scratches and scuffs despite what some other people might be saying.
It has to look nice on day 100, not just on day one.
But honestly, I don't think it will continue to look as new and shiny because look, it is transparent, it is plastic, and it's bound to lose that luster over time. But again, I didn't make the phone. Now, some really important things about the design. This is IP54, so it'll handle splashes, but you cannot immerse this in water. It's got a dual SIM tray, but no way to expand storage, and no support for eSIM. It's got NFC, but no wireless charging. And the display is protected using Gorilla Glass 5, which at this price I think is okay. The design is also very reminiscent of an iPhone Pro Max series given the size. Because it's big and the edges curve almost like how it does on iPhones. And it's got the flat display too. Also, I think it's relatively a bit thicker than other phones in this price segment, but in a good way. The grip feels good and the in-hand feel is also not cheap. I mean, overall, it doesn't look like a $350 phone or a phone that's under $25,000, if that's what you want to know. Now, before I move on, I really want to talk about one thing, and that's the glyph lights. Look, it's a big part of the design, sure, but don't let that affect your buying decision. It's cool, it's unique, but you won't really use it as much. And it's a lot like, how iPhone came out with the dynamic island or Samsung came out with 200 megapixel camera. I mean, how many of us really ended up using those? Also, if you want me to do a video talking about all these gimmicks that smartphone companies come up with, let me know in the comment section. I'll definitely work on that. Now, what I really don't like about this phone is actually its display. Look, specs-wise, I think it's okay. It's a big display. It's got a smooth 120Hz refresh rate. And sure, they say it's an HDR10 Plus display, but sadly, it does not support HDR or Dolby Vision titles on Netflix. See? Nothing. But that's not the main problem. It's actually the brightness of this display. It's just not enough. See, it's got a typical brightness of 700 nits, which is frankly not as much. It's got a peak brightness of 1300 nits, but again, that's just when you're outdoors in bright sunlight, and that too for a very short duration. But then there are phones like the Poco X6 or Redmi Note 13 Pro that have brighter displays than this phone, just in case if you wanted options. Another exception, for example, there's Samsung Galaxy A35, which has similar brightness levels as the Nothing Phone 2A. But then it's got the Vision Booster algorithm, which this phone's lack. And what that does is that it takes care of the dark regions and the bright regions and manipulates them in order to increase clarity despite very sunny outdoors. All in all, what I'm trying to say is that if you're outdoors and you're trying to watch a movie on this, you'll have troubles. Okay, now let's talk about performance. And if you've seen other videos, this is no performance beast. In fact, there have been some complaints of lag on this phone. And yes, it was the case in the beginning. However, the phone has received quite a few updates in the past to make things better. And I'll say, it is, in fact, slightly better. The phone in general, it feels really smooth. The UI elements feel very fluid. Some of the animations are super buttery. I mean, it doesn't feel laggy in any way. So I've got to say, the optimization on this is bang on. And a lot of credit actually does go to Nothing OS 2.5 on this, and we'll talk about that shortly. Even while I'm playing games, things look good and smooth, but is it good for gaming? So within Call of Duty, you get the option to opt for ultra high frame rates or very high graphic settings, which is good. And as I play, I don't feel any lag. Things feel quite smooth, response to touch is good too. And while playing BGMI as well, you can see that I can opt for HDR along with ultra frame rate as an option. And again, while playing, things felt good. You can check the frame rates that are being shown at the top here, and you can absolutely use it for editing 4K videos as well. It might not be the smoothest experience, but you'll definitely be able to pull it off and export 4K videos for, things like shorts and reels. But having said all of that, there are places where you will feel this phone a little slow. For example, when taking a picture, most times right after I take a picture and immediately hit gallery, there's a significant processing time. And that is something that you don't want to see. So they've actually used UFS 2.2 as internal storage, which is slow and old. But if they want to position themselves as a better and a more premium option within this price segment, I really think they should have gone with UFS 3.1. It would have just given them that extra edge, but I guess that's one compromise they made to keep the cost low. But one star that you can pin in their performance is actually their battery life. So it's got a 5000 mAh battery, but it is super efficient. I mean, this phone can give you a screen on time of about 8 hours with mixed use. And if you're careful about your use, it actually may go beyond that one day. And it does support 45-watt charging and can charge from 1% to full within an hour. But it does not come with a charger in the box, so that's something that you have to pay out of your pocket. And also, if you are looking for a higher performance smartphone, you may want to spend a little bit more, and you could get yourself the OnePlus Nord CE4, which I think would have a better chip, better overall performance, and it's a new launch. Now, just like with design, even the software on the Nothing phone is quite unique. There's also no preloaded apps on the Nothing OS right now. I mean, if you compare it to some other phones in this price segment like the Oppos, the Vivos, they have quite a bit of preloaded apps and a bit of junk. And in fact, they recommend you to install more of that junk. We could say that Nothing right now hasn't reached to a point where apps could reach out or app companies could reach out to Nothing and say, hey, pre-install me. So basically right now, they're not dirty. Also, Nothing promises you 3 years of Android upgrades and 4 years of security patches, which I think is pretty good for this price segment. I mean, if you are thinking of any other phone, there are few phones that actually just give you 2 years of OS upgrades and 3 years of security. So you might want to compare and be content. And lastly, let's talk about the cameras. And firstly, let's just go through the specs. So you get a 50 megapixel primary camera with optical image stabilization and a 50 megapixel ultra wide camera. So yeah, those are the only 2 cameras you get. And I'm also really happy that they've not included any unnecessary cameras like a macro camera, which makes no sense, but a telephoto lens would have been really good. But enough specs, let's get into the samples. So here are shots taken using the primary camera, and all I can really say is it's fine. It isn't the best in terms of capturing colors, or the white balance, hugely varies. Images can feel a little washed out at times, and the details, they aren't always as good. Just decent photos, nothing that you'd see and say, wow. And all of these will be actually made available for you to download, so there's going to be a link in the description, you can just go from there. Even in case of portrait photos, it's a hit or miss. The focus fall off, it isn't as natural, and the edge detection isn't always good. I do believe Nothing needs to work quite a bit on the portrait mode to make it look more natural and more pleasing. Moving on to low light photos, again, hit or miss. So these don't look as bad, right? But then look at this one, all the details are gone. Here, it looks so washed out, I don't see any color in here. But then again, sometimes it does an okay job. It's really just, a bit unreliable, and I think as long as there is some ambient light around you, the pictures are going to be fine, otherwise quite poor. Selfies were quite good though, even in portrait mode, whether I was facing the sun or whether the sun was behind me. I think the front camera did a pretty good job, maintained a lot of the natural look and colors with decent edge detection. However, when the lighting is low, that's when details, it starts to, suffer, and the images aren't as sharp as you can see here. Now let's talk about 4K videos, and again, as long as it's nice and bright, the videos are just about fine, but there's quite a bit of rolling shutter effect if you move the camera around, which plays with the overall quality and the playback of the video. But as long as you keep the camera stable and not move too much like walking or running with it, I think it'll look fine. Also, it had a hard time to focus on objects that are too close or too small. I had to manually tap to focus on this tiny branch, and that too, it couldn't retain the focus as I moved down. So that's not too good either. And as the light began to go down, you can see how, blue and magenta this footage is. So your white balance goes off in this case. Even in here, you can see as I walk down the stairs, inside a cafe, notice the focus breathing. It's quite evident in various parts of the video. And of course, in night conditions when light is really low, it becomes very obvious. The focus hunting is very apparent and it's not really holding up too well. And one thing I'll point out that the camera app does not have a pro mode. I mean, just something you should know. Overall, I think it's a very okay-ish camera. I mean, if you're looking to buy a camera-centric smartphone, in this price segment, this is probably not the one to go for. Look guys, if you wanted a Nothing phone at an affordable price, here it is. If you wanted a premium looking phone at an affordable price, here it is. It may not come with the best processor in the segment, but it's smooth. The UI is really cool. It's got its own flavor. Sure, it's buggy, but I think that's just a matter of time before they fix all of that. But yeah, it's got its own set of design issues. Like it's really fingerprinty. It's got a dull display, so it's not really suitable for very long outdoor use. It's got very average cameras, no expandable storage, and unlike other phones in this price segment, this one does not come with its own charger or a protective case in the box. And so yeah, that's pretty much all that I think you need to know on the Nothing Phone 2a. That should be enough to make a decision. And if you guys still have any questions, doubts, concerns, let me know in the comment section. I'll definitely help you out. And if you guys did enjoy watching the video, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit that bell notification icon, and mark all really helps the channel grow. I'll see you guys in the next one.